President Trump does not support statehood for U.S. territories.
It's really a horrible thing. It's going to be very unfair. You're going to end up having a one-party system in the United States.
He's concerned that new states mean new seats in Congress, which could jeopardize a GOP majority in the Senate.
So if people want to stop that, you got to vote against the Democrats.
His comments highlight the 4 million disenfranchised residents of U.S. territories. Americans in Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, American Samoa, U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico cannot vote for president. A series of long-standing Supreme Court decisions known as the Insular Cases in 1901 ruled that residents of these territories are alien races that do not understand basic Anglo-Saxon principles. It wasn't until over 100 years later that Congress directly took up the issue of Puerto Rico's self-determination. In August, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez introduced the Puerto Rico Self-Determination Act of 2020. It supports a status convention for the people of Puerto Rico to assemble and choose their own political status for Congress to consider.
For some Puerto Ricans, presidential voting rights, which could come through statehood, is what they see as the solution for remedying Puerto Rico's colonial condition.
Erica Gonzalez considers the politics surrounding the path to statehood tied to a colonial history. Puerto Rico is voting for the 6th time on a political status referendum on their local ballot in November.
But you have a lot of Democratic operatives that are trying to package Puerto Rico and D.C. as a voter disenfranchisement issue and tracking them to statehood to help the Democratic Party in terms of its representation. And what we say is that's still pawning Puerto Rico. You're still trying to dictate an agenda based on what's good for you externally. So it's colonialism light in 2020.
Territories participate in both Republican and Democratic national conventions.
Begins. The island of Guam pledges its 9 delegates to the next president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
The territory's only formal voice in Washington, though, is through a non-voting member of Congress.
I do believe that all Americans should be able to vote for president, no matter where they live, where they reside. And this is not how the U.S. Constitution is written. However, the Constitution would have to be amended to allow the residents of territories to vote for president, as the Constitution was amended in 1961. To give the District of Columbia voters votes in the Electoral College and the residents of the district the right to vote for president.
Territories like the Northern Marianas and Guam serve as strategic military locations and are also home to some of the highest enlistment rates in the U.S. military. When it comes to political status, Sablan says residents should be able to determine that for themselves.
We have to have a real conversation here on the ground with our people. But if the people of the Marianas vote to seek statehood, as the representative of Congress, I would, of course, do everything in my power to get statehood for the Northern Marianas.
And the voter turnout for these territories' general elections often match or exceed figures in the continental U.S., even in presidential election years. Here in California, East Bay Congressman Eric Swalwell said he supports a vote by residents on their political status.
And I think it's a decision for Puerto Ricans. I personally, support having a referendum to have statehood, and I, would support in the Congress, having that be.
Until that day comes, voters in the territories continue to hang in the balance every 4 years. Thomas Manglona in Palo Alto for Peninsula Press.